Hey, folks, it is February the 10th. This is our 1301 dual credit class, and today it's going to be a relatively brief lecture. I went back and I edited some of my notes to fill in some of the things that I've left out over the American Revolution. And this isn't everything that I wish I could have added, but these are some important points that had to do with some of the battles and things like that I wish I had added earlier. So after this relatively short lecture, I want you to use the rest of the class time to study for your test on Friday. So that's going to be on the Google Classroom, but I'm going to put grades into Canvas. And I'm going to tell you what your essay prompt is going to be at the end of the lecture. So going all the way back to the beginning of the war, if you remember, after Boston, Washington marched to New York to try to free New York as well. However, I told you the British turned him back. Well, the British who turned him back, and this is a new slide, was led by General Howe. And so, yeah, that guy. So here's some stuff I left out.
Was he a good bad guy?
Well, he wasn't a monster, like he didn't use total war or anything like that against us. He was rather gentlemanly, and he was one of the better combat leaders there. But a lot of his subordinates were really foppish. They were like by that I mean they were like decadent, kind of British nobility. More interested in their own personal luxuries than they were in winning the war. Howe himself is going to make some pretty bad mistakes where he could have probably ended the American Revolution on their side pretty early here in New York, but because he couldn't capitalize on it, it didn't work out so well. So August 1776, the British send General Howe to Long Island, New York, with large contingent of Army and naval forces. So things were going well in Boston, so the British are going to send a lot more people down. Due to their sheer numbers, they were able to force Washington to escape back to Pennsylvania. The British hoped that this counteroffensive would end the war quickly, but they were thwarted by Washington's escape. This stage of the conflict showed that the British had superior numbers and training. However, their leaders lacked aggressiveness required to capitalize on their victories. And that's going to be one of their major problems, is they're going to be rather soft-handed. Whenever they have a victory, they're not able to pursue Washington that well. Because realistically, Washington lost most battles, but they were never able to capture and completely defeat his army. He's always able to pull out and get his soldiers back to safety. And that's one of the major themes of all of this. It's a major theme of guerrilla warfare. In guerrilla warfare or unconventional warfare, you don't ever want to meet normal troops. You never do, because then you're always going to lose. It's more important to stay away and just kind of whittle at them the best you can until they give up. And essentially, that's one of the things that's going to work out for the Americans. If the British really wanted to, they could have thrown everything they had at us, and that would have been really hard. At the end of the war, Parliament is going to beg for an end to the war because it costs so much. It's one way to really influence England when they're fighting a war is like show them how much it costs.
Do you think Washington would have won sooner if he had used more guerrilla tactics?
Oh, I think he did according to what they understood them at the time, right? And I think that's why they survived so well. However, it's when you're doing that kind of thing, making the other side leave can take a very long time. So you can win, but it can take a really long time. It's because they survived so long using the tactics they had, and then finally able to meet them conventionally and defeat them, army against army, navy against navy, at Yorktown is what helps end it. It's going to just totally humiliate them. And it's going to be a big boost for our self-confidence as a newly born nation as well. So it's like, yeah, but I mean, if you want to end things fast, win it conventionally. So yeah, this is important for us. So, now this next one we talked about this one last time, but I added a little bit to it. So here we see I added that at the Battle of Trenton, I added the date. And it was at Trenton, New Jersey, and then it crossed Delaware River. So we talked about that, but I didn't put it down here. And of course, let me see. I also added that it helped boost morale and recruitment. So recruitment, I think I forgot to mention this. So whenever Washington's army, his soldiers signed up, they only signed up for a year at a time. And so when these young men left the farms and they signed up to join the army, remember, they weren't getting paid. They weren't even getting fed or clothed very well. And they were losing battle after battle. And so they had a big problem with guys going AWOL, like fleeing and going back to the farm. And so the victory here at Trenton is going to help convince a lot of Washington soldiers to re-enlist. And also people who are on the fence see this victory and they decide to join Washington's army. So this is something you really needed. So like I said, it's a battle to like maintain the hearts of the people around you. The British couldn't do it. They were already largely unpopular. Yes, there were loyalists, but a lot of the loyalists were people who were doing well and probably just felt like they had too much material wealth to really join and fight with them. And the British didn't exactly like use locals as soldiers very often anyways, unless they were hired mercenaries and Indians. But Washington was pulling from the normal population, which meant he had to convince them that it was going their way. And this helps with that. This helps with that. That's one of the reasons why the Battle of Trenton is so important. And it was also popular with the locals because, like I told you, the Hessians were very hated. They were seen as cruel. They were very mean to the people in the colonies who didn't even have anything to do with the war. And so by doing this and getting rid of these foreign mercenaries really made them look like a good guy as well. Let's see, yeah, that's a new one. Okay. So, neat little small sword. I would have thought he would have had a cavalry sword though. Because that's like a gentleman's like self-defense sword.
I'm sure. Well, in this painting, this is at the Valley. This is at the Valley Forge.
Yeah.
So they've been making camp for a while. So I'm sure this isn't his war sword. This is probably just his self-defense.
I guess so.
Surprise attack.
I read a British cavalry manual years ago, just for the giggles of it, and it had a section on like training the saber, right? And so it was funny. Like one of the tips I remember reading is like when you're riding your horse, and you're using your saber, never swing at your target because you'll chop so deep into somebody that your sword gets stuck and you'll lose it. Basically, you're just kind of like riding fast. You just kind of hold it out and kind of like clothesline them with the sword. And so it's like, I was like, I didn't know that. So I learned something today. So, yeah, this is a new one. So the three-pronged strategy, right? In 1777, the British had largely given up their attempt to subdue New England. However, they are going to make one large push. General Howe believed that the southern colonies, and I mentioned this last time, had more loyalists, and they'd be able to garner more support in the region. In the meantime, the British would send 3 armies to attack Albany, New York, and cut off the New England colonies from their allies. So remember, New England was seen as the major problem, especially Boston. And the whole idea was to divide and conquer. We're going to get support from the South, therefore they'll lose the southern colonies. We're going to send this 3-pronged attack into New York and cut off New England, and then we can beat up the little guys as we please. This decision, however, will lead to the Battle of Saratoga. because as the three British armies marched towards New York, we're going to see General Howe was going to be caught at Saratoga by the Patriots. Yeah, go ahead. I mean, you're not technically in the class anyway. Yeah, one thing I think I'm going to add later is I want to add some more of the social history stuff. I don't know, like what were like things like regarding like just people doing things like donating things to the army, the volunteerism, uh, what was going on with the early spy networks, traitors, stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that I need to add to this later. But due to time, we got to move on or we won't make it to the end of the semester because we got to make it to the end of the semester and then we got to get ready for that Peskill EOC, which are going to do great at. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Is this a new one?
Is it Saratoga?
Yeah, it's Saratoga. I just added a couple things like so only one of the three British armies made it to their destination, and that's going to be General Howe's. And the Patriots, the Continental Forces, led by General Horatio Gates, is going to meet General Burgoyne in battle. Oh, never mind, it's Burgoyne, not Howe. He didn't make it. General Burgoyne was surrounded by American forces and surrendered. So we had that last time. And we had this next one too. Victory gained 7,000 muskets, 42 cannons, nearly 6,000 prisoners for the Patriots. Yeah, I think Burgoyne came with 8,000, and the remaining 7 was taken prisoners. And so that was embarrassing. As like for one, it showed that the British leadership they were so incompetent that this complicated plan they put together, they couldn't even get their timing right. Because when you're having an attack that has this many moving parts, 3 entire armies moving from different directions to meet at the same place at once, that's a lot of room for error. And they did have error. As we saw here, they came up and they were soundly defeated. And this is a whole British army surrendering. Very, very embarrassing for the British. That's one of the reasons why we mentioned last time, the French are going to be like, oh, okay, I guess you Americans are legit. We'll help you out. So, yeah.
7,000 muskets, 42 cannons, and nearly 6,000 prisoners for the Patriots.
Yeah, that'd be some pretty cool like showpieces in my living room.
7,000 muskets?
Nah, not 7,000. I could do with just a few.
I can do it.
I've never played with black powder before. I've always thought about it. And you wouldn't want like to use their old gunpowder back then because back then they did like now we use smokeless gunpowder. Back then it would make like this nasty big acrid cloud and all this other stuff. It was also corrosive, so you would have to clean your muskets all the time after use, or it would corrode the steel. Like today, yeah, you're supposed to clean firearms, but it's not because you're so scared that
It'll just blow up.
Well, not blow up, or just like rust it through, like basically. Like a lot of third world ammunition still like that, where it's just like, I guess it's acidic or something. All right, so more on this.
Wait, was it 6K prisoners?
Yeah, around that. Yeah, a little bit more. All right, so this is a little new. Yeah, most of this is new. Saratoga ruined British plan to divide and conquer colonies. Okay. And this next part, we have that Treaty of Alliance. We had that last time. Treaty was due to America's success in battle and to Ben Franklin's popularity in the French court. And so, like, Ben Franklin in France was like very popular. he on purpose dressed like a pioneer. You know, he'd wear like animal skins and stuff like that. He would give crazy stories about Indians and all these kind of strange things that happened in America and not France. He loved wining and dining with French nobility. There's a lot of scandalous stories about him as well, even though he was an old man. So, but in any case, he was so popular, he made a great diplomat in order and garnering the support from French royalty. France, and to a lesser extent Spain, enters the war against Britain. And this is going to lead to Valley Forge, which we so yeah. And of course, like I told you, this is going to be the French are going to go so far all in into this. A lot of it was revenge. They were pretty unhappy about losing Canada. That they're actually going to really, really drive up their debt. Not exact. I mean, the French royalty weren't exactly like fiscally responsible people in the first place, but this is going to lead to the need for a lot of tax revenue later, and that's going to lead to kind of be the focal point for the French Revolution, at least the first part of it. See, it might have been it. Yeah, that's the same. We already had same Valley Forge stuff, same Yorktown. Hey, that does it. Great. Yeah, so that's all the stuff I added. Not that much, right? And so I'm going to download this as a PDF and repost it on Google Classroom so you have an updated version of it. And so now your prompt. All right, so
Can you go back to the last one? Just go ahead.
that one, last one we talked about.
Yes.
That one. Okay. So, boop. All right. So your prompt. Let's see here. Your prompt is going to be what. Okay. It's essentially going to be what conditions led to the American Revolution. Really, that's it. Like I think a lot of y'all can figure that out. Like, because the war is important, but it's the reasons behind it that's most important, really. Whenever I read history, the thing that interests me the most are the ideologies behind what people do, and so that's my bias. So why was this divorce bound to happen? Why? What mistakes were made by the British? What was going on in the minds of the patriots? And if you need to borrow one of my books to read up on it, that's fine. Just let me know. But otherwise, you have your mission. So, all right, kids. So it's going to end it today, just under 20 minutes, and we'll see you on Friday.